Hey guys, Darkster here with another Magic the Gathering video for you guys. This one's going to be on the Simic Swell the Host Commander deck by Wizards of the Coast. This is one of their newer pre-made Commander decks that they made, and supposedly one of the better sets. Actually, this whole set is excellent, and this deck is fairly good too. This deck in particular, I would highly recommend to people that are new to Magic the Gathering and also Commander, not just new to Commander. If you're new to Commander, there's probably other decks in this set out of the other 5 decks or the other 4 decks that you might want to consider a little bit more over this one in particular. But this one is excellent if you're new to Magic the Gathering as a whole and you're also new to Commander as well. This is probably the deck you want to go with. This is actually the deck I recommended to my friend who was exactly in that same situation. He's new to Magic the Gathering and he's new to Commander, and this was the deck I told him he should get, and he's got it and he's been playing with it, and it's pretty good for that. Exactly that, it's pretty good. And it is mainly, at the end of the day, it's a mono green ramp deck, but it does have quite a bit of blue in there. The blue doesn't really take advantage of what you would consider blue to take advantage of, which is a lot of control type stuff. It's really, like as you can see, all the main cards that I have in here, or I brought out to kind of show you guys, are green, you know? So that's something to consider. If you're not a huge fan of green, you might not like this, but ramp is generally going to include green, if you ask me, and that's always the case from what I've seen. So yeah, you do have a few ramp engines here. We got Sakura Tribe Elder, which will help you get that ramp out. You got Primal Growth here, which will also get you going, and Solemn is kind of a staple when it comes to straight up ramp capabilities. Of course, you got your commander as well, Azuri. I keep wanting to say Eldrazi, but that's not right. Elzuri, or Izuri, is your commander for this deck. He is actually a very good commander. I kind of would want to consider throwing him in as a commander for maybe some kind of infect type. It would be really mean to do, but I think it would be awesome to have him as some kind of infect, green-blue infect deck. Have that stacking capability there. I think that would be really cool. Having him kind of just kind of spam the field, buff those creatures, and then just swing in for infect would be pretty cool. I don't know, something to consider if you're doing that. We got Orochi here, or Cassetto. Very good, but not something I would consider actually switching out as my main commander. I think he can work pretty well for something like Snake Tribal. There's actually, awkwardly enough, or not awkwardly enough, notably enough, there's quite a few snakes in the deck, which means if you want to do like a Snake Tribal or like something like that, something like snake based, you can totally go and kind of switch these guys out and maybe go down that route instead. I personally like the big giant kind of green cards or green creatures that you can kind of swing in with and do a lot of damage. We're talking like Vortipedes and stuff like that. I think would be a lot better for this deck personally. Anyway, that's the direction I would go down, more than like a Snake Tribal type route. But yeah, there's the other guy. There's the other commander. Elzuri has a lot of potential. The whole buffing capability is awesome. Over here we have these cards are in a different sleeve, mainly because I put these in my Plunder the Graves deck. These are some more ramp capability cards from the deck, which I kind of pulled out. There's a lot of ramp, basically, as you can tell, just from here. Like these quite a few ramp engine cards that'll get you a lot of cards out very quickly. Some kind of control and removal here. And of course, this is the deck that has Command Beacon in it. It's kind of one of those cards that everyone in Commander kind of wants to have in their deck. The only way you can get it is by buying this deck, basically. So if you want to get Command Beacon, you're going to have to get this deck. I don't think anyone's really selling it or breaking it apart and selling it separately, which is one of those things that kind of you question when it comes to Commander. It's like, should they make Commander-specific cards? I think it's a good idea, but I think it's a little much when they make something like Command Beacon, for instance, and then they kind of lock it into a particular deck, which forces people to kind of buy that deck. The same thing with the Blade of Selves from the Wade into Battle deck. It's like, it's a very good card. It's an amazing card, almost broken, honestly. But the problem is, it's only in the Wade into Battle deck, and it's like, alright, I guess I have to buy this deck to get this card now, and there's no real other way of getting it. No one's really buying the deck and then breaking it apart and selling it separately, and if they are, it's going to be worth a lot. I don't know. I'm just something to think about. I don't know if I agree with that philosophy completely, but it exists and something we got to get used to. So that's Command Beacon. Great card, though. Absolutely excellent card. But yeah, here are some of the creatures that you'll find in the deck. this card in particular, I found a lot of trouble with facing against. It basically becomes an 8/8 with the pump capabilities, just for 4 mana, 2 green, 2 colorless. You can get them into an 8/8, and with the buffing capability of Elzuri or Izuri. I'm sorry, I keep wanting to say Eldrazi. With the boost capability of that, this thing can get very scary very fast, and same with pretty much anything else. The interesting thing about this deck is you don't suspect it to be too dangerous when you're playing. You'll be playing with it, or you're playing against it at least, and you'll just see a few 4/4s, maybe some 2/2s and stuff, and you wouldn't think much of it, and you would kind of ignore it, and then all of a sudden the commander's coming out, buffing everything, and he's just turning everything sideways and doing huge amounts of damage, and it just kind of comes out of nowhere. And cards like Overrun are kind of that whole surprise mechanic where it's like you don't think too much of it, and then all of a sudden everything's buffed out, has like trample and all that stuff going on, and all of a sudden you're like, I have like 2/2s that I'm going to block with and take like 15 damage all of a sudden. So you got to be careful with the deck. You got to anticipate it. It is susceptible to removal. I find that if you can bounce the cards back into the player's hand, or if you can just remove it, put it straight into the graveyard, you do gain fairly good advantage against this deck. So that would be the way I would recommend you counter it if you're facing against this deck, is try and make sure he doesn't have creatures. Your opponent does not have creatures on the board. If you can remove them or just have as little as possible, don't let him have Izuri out, because he's really the thing, he's really the engine that makes this all really get stacked up and go crazy. So if you make sure he doesn't get out enough or get his cost to be really high, and just make sure there's not too many other creatures like these out on the board, you can do fairly well against it, because it really doesn't have any other answers aside from just trying to get creatures out and then ramping and then swinging through with them. Lastly, let's just quickly go over the Confluence card here. This is this deck's Confluence card. Great card, I think. I would consider this one to be maybe one of the weaker ones in the set in comparison to the other Confluence cards, but still an excellent card. It works really well for this archetype of the whole ramp deck. You know, the whole +1 counters aspect, the whole permanent from your graveyard to your hand. So if you do get something removed, you can use this to bring back your cards back in your hand, then you can maybe replay them. And then again, the ramp aspect. The thing is, the ramp aspect at this point, when you're paying 4, 5, 6, right? For 6 mana, then adding ramp into that, I don't know if you're really needed at that point, personally, but I don't know. I really think the first 2 abilities are the ones you're kind of switching through, and the third one's kind of just added in for the hell of it. But I don't know. I think it's a great card. Overall, again, the deck is very good for newer players that are coming into Commander, or just the game in general. It's a great deck if you like ramp. If you're a fan of ramp, it's a great deck, and it's a great deck if you're looking for upgrade potential. You can go on a few directions with it, which is nice, because some of the other decks you're kind of locked in a little bit more. Whereas here, you can go and take it in a few ways and see how it goes, kind of experiment and have some fun. And I think that's about it. As always, please subscribe, rate, and comment, and Darkster out. Peace.
Well, basically, Rush has nothing. So
Okay.
we will swing at the Rush because they can't block.
You attack us.
Oh, yeah, true.
Yeah.
What the fuck is this?
You can block
You
with
attacked
this
us before.
Right, my bad. I thought we said it
So we
the other
attack
way.
us. What the fuck?